Prep time starts now. As a senior in high school, I have been experiencing the waves of college applications that have been coming my way. And with this comes diving into the universities that I want to apply to. I want to be a woman in STEM, and looking at universities boast about 25% of their engineering programs containing female students is a little disheartening. However, I turn to the words of Agnes Allen to inspire me to not only start a journey in STEM, but to also carry through with it and become an accomplished STEMist in the future. Her quote, almost anything is easier to get into than to get out of, is so motivating for not only my future, but has played a key role in explaining the events of a current event in the Supreme Court cases regarding Jewish Americans reclaiming their culture from the Nazis, a past event of the Progressive Era and the muckrackers at the time, and a book entitled The Kite Runner. Starting off, the Supreme Court is not new to seeing cases of Jewish Americans reclaiming the art that has been stolen by the Nazis under the rule of Adolf Hitler. One such example is Jed Labor, who had promised his grandfather, Sammy Rosenberg, that he would reclaim all of the art that the Nazis had stolen from him under Hitler's rule. These court cases happened this past weekend, and they're still ongoing, facing ridicule from the Trump administration and ultimately causing a bunch of emotional distress on Jed Labor. However, all of the trials and tribulations that he is facing in order to claim the art that was stolen from his grandfather back is worth the promise that he made in the beginning. He made this promise, and living up to the words of Agnes Allen, he's going to get himself out of the problem that he's caused, but it's going to take a lot of hard work that he's willing to do. Next, we're going to talk about the Progressive Era, which took place in the United States from around 1890s to the early 1900s, before the Great Depression. This era is marked by women's suffrage, the Prohibition movement, and the exposing of robber barons at the time, who were large company owners who monopolized over the industries, for example, of steel or oil. Muckrackers such as Upton Sinclair, who wrote The Jungle, which called out the meatpacking industry for their long hours, their low pay, and the horrid working conditions that were not sanitary and not conducive for actual productive work. He was ridiculed by critics from upper in the social stratosphere than he was. He was ridiculed for calling out these industries, and he was heavily discriminated against because he was trying to make change. Him starting his journey as a muckracker, a journalist and a newspaper writer who was calling out the changes that needed to happen, ultimately resulted in the changes happening. Even though it was easy to start talking, to start the conversations. It was harder to actually live up to that and to work and act on those conversations. However, Upson Sinclair is a perfect example of Agnes Allen's words through his actions and his book, The Jungle. Lastly, to talk about the novel The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. The Kite Runner focuses on a young boy and his journey through adulthood. It focuses on his relationship with his best friend Hassan, who he ultimately ends up betraying in an awful way. In order to make up for this betrayal, he decides to take on the son that he left behind, named Sarab. However, this task is not easy for Amir, who ends up facing the Taliban of Afghanistan and who ends up breaking multiple promises along the way. However, it was easy for him to make the promise to go to Afghanistan to rescue Sarab, but him ending up in a hospital, him ending up facing off against the Taliban, and him ending up almost losing the child was a result, and all of the things that he had to go through in order to achieve what he wanted, what he set out to do. And thus, it was easy to get into the situation, but hard to get out. Yet the quote was inspiring, and he was inspired to be able to live up to his words. Now, I know that being a female in the STEM career is not easy, but I live up to Agnes Allen's words every day, and I try to make sure that everything that I start, I accomplish, just as was seen in the Jewish Americans taking back their art, the Progressive Era, and the Kite Runner. Not only do I aspire to live up to Agnes Allen's words, but I aspire to be a woman who makes history, just as Agnes Allen did, being a female baseball player in America in the early 1900s, when women had no rights, and when women were fighting to be able to be equal to men.